The most common workplace schedule that we see is an 8-hour day, Monday through Friday. If you have ever worked a full-time job before, this is something that is going to sound very, very familiar to you. The 8-hour workday and the 40-hour work week is something that has been around since the year 1940. The 40-hour work week first came around when Congress passed something that is called the Fair Labor Standards Act. With the Fair Labor Standards Act in effect, the 40-hour work week not only became the standard, but the law. Anytime somebody worked over 40 hours a week, this would allow them to earn something called overtime. Since the inception of the Fair Labor Standards Act, the 40-hour work week has continued to be the business standard and what is generally perceived as the most productive schedule. Even though this is what is considered to be the standard work week, in reality, only about 42% of Americans work within those 40 hours. 40% of Americans work 50 hours or more a week, and about 18% of Americans work 60 hours a week or more. Going off of these statistics, about 58% of Americans are working over 40 hours a week. Working so much, one might start to wonder if this is necessary for productivity or if it might start to have negative effects on your health. The stress and time that you spend at work away from things like leisure can start to have a pretty negative effect on your overall well-being and health. Studies have found that on an average 8-hour workday, only about 2 hours and 53 minutes of that time are you actually being productive. Productivity in an office setting can also be very small in contrast to the time that you are actually spent working there. In the office, a worker is expected to be distracted about 1 time every 3 minutes. Some of the most common distractions that we see in the workplace, especially in an office setting, is browsing on the web, which takes up about an average of 1 hour and 5 minutes every workday, time spent on social media for an average of 45 minutes, and non-work related discussions for, again, about an average of 40 minutes. When someone gets distracted while they're at work, it can take an average of about 23 minutes to get refocused on the task at hand. With so many distractions in the workplace and how difficult it can be to refocus on your work, you have to wonder if there's a better solution. In Sweden, they have implemented a 6-hour work week to challenge the traditional 40-hour week. In Sweden, the decision to switch over to a 6-hour work week was intended to heighten the productivity in a day. With less time being spent at work, the idea is that you're going to be more focused and attentive to your job. In Sweden, this has been a fairly popular adjustment, with about 60% of all employers in Sweden noting an increase to the overall productivity when there is a reduction to the hours spent at work. We can all relate to this feeling and idea. Think of when you left an assignment due to the very last second. The short amount of time and concentration that you've dedicated to this assignment can feel like a much quicker manner and more efficient than if you were to have maybe a full day to complete it. When we're working on such a short deadline in place, we generally tend to work a lot faster and more efficient. Although the idea of a 6-hour workday might sound very promising to implement in a place like America, it is important to note that the 6-hour workday is only as effective as you make it. What I'm trying to say is that if you cut the hours that you spend at work, you will need to stay much more productive. With a longer workday, there is a much more time that can be spent idle and not fully attentive. Workers in America tend to be generally a little more stressed on average than Swedish workers. If we reduce the hours in a week that we spend working, there is a chance that workers in America would experience more stress as there is less time for distractions. It is also important to note that many Americans are very stubborn when it comes to traditions and values. So with the Fair Labor Act being in effect for over 80 years, it would be a little hard to imagine America without the standard 40-hour work week. So whether or not you think a 6-hour workday might be beneficial or not, it is important to keep in mind how many distractions we experience in a day and how much time we actually spend being productive. People can generally be focused for about 1 hour before they require about a 15-minute break. So use this extra time at work and be as productive as you can while working. Thank you for your time.